Hello, and welcome to Turn Zero Loss, presented by the Magic Engineers. I'm Eli, and today we're joined by a special guest. His name is David. He's a friend of ours, and Sherry figured we'd bring him along for what we consider to be a very fun topic to talk with him, since it
Oh, I have so
involves.
much to say.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of this is going to be a little bit of a different style than what we typically have recorded in the past. It's going to be a little more free form, so it's kind of leave it up to a dialogue, and we'll just kind of bounce it around as we see fit. So today we're going to be discussing what some of the best and worst of Magic's 2022 year was,
And there's been
and
some best, and there has been some worst. Pretty worst.
some really bad worsts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're there's also a couple in there that we're gonna label as something else, but we'll get to that when we get there. So I think to kick us off, we'll start with one of the best, and then we'll just kind of bounce back and forth between what we have written down here from best to worst. Starting with Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. I believe that is a fantastic set. It was very well curated, and overall, I don't think there's really many duds in that set.
Yeah, I was really worried about this set coming in because the history of Kamigawa is generally very much the kind of thing where flavor, awesome, mechanics, you're coming off of Mirrodin, so the power just wasn't there, and it also wasn't really a very, I don't know, mechanically interesting set. Or at least the mechanics that were there seemed severely underpowered, but
They were flavorful, but not actually powerful.
right.
Which is what they really found. They hadn't had that issue in a long time before that.
It also didn't help that Mirrodin was not too long before that, and it was still a standard that was utterly dominated by some really disgusting cards. So Kamigawa originally really didn't get much of a chance to succeed, but I think Neon Dynasty is a pretty awesome way to pick it up because the flavor's still there and there's a lot of really cool cards and it doesn't feel very weak.
Yeah, I think, especially in terms of flavor, they could have. There's many points where this like cyberpunk could have gotten just like off track. I was a little nervous that we were going to get like a cyberpunk 2020 or 2077 launch, and like when I first heard what they were doing with this, like they had a pretty kind of high bar of two really loved ideas, which is like kind of the flavor of Kamigawa and the idea of cyberpunk, and will that actually work together?
Yeah. Well, we're lucky that, half the creatures in Kamigawa aren't bug types. So
Yeah, yeah. It would have been a lot more of a terrible set if it was that way. And I think it was very well put together for a draft environment as well. Like, it didn't feel like there was any real wrong way that you could draft this set. But Sherry and I were very fortunate to be able to draft with a couple of our friends, and it was a great experience. Like, the deck I had for that, I considered actually taking to like an LGS and trying to, hold up against other players. But there was no way it was going to do any good because it's just a draft, little draft deck. But got some really good pulls out of it, and honestly, the deck archetypes that you could put together through that draft set, super good. And it wasn't like they were forcing so much into Commander either. There wasn't really anything super powerful in the set, but like there was a couple cards that were like considered chase cards that like invited people to buy collector boosters, and it wasn't like forcing them to go in and buy all the draft boosters or buy all the set boosters and drive the price up with all the cards, or tank prices on other cards. The was it the neon Hitotsugu, wasn't it?
It was the neon. He gets hit at Sugu.
Yeah, like those being the chase card of the set really helped a lot and provided a lot of chances for people to get something really valuable if they really wanted to go for that. There's
Yeah,
things
but
for the
in
collectors, things
but in
for
force.
people that are playing. Yeah.
I got a question for you guys. What was your favorite card from the set?
Uh,
That's a good question.
Because I know mine. I'll just come out and say it right now. My favorite card from the set was the Kami War. That card is really awesome. It's not like uber powerful or anything, but I love the flavor, and it's probably like to me an example of sagas being done correctly, where it builds up incrementally and then it becomes all of a sudden this humongous thing that can easily take over the board and has a really neat archetype to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of the sagas, I think this is finally where sagas have become like something I like. I like seeing them for like limited and like sealed environments, but like now that they're actually truly playable in almost all formats by flipping over into a creature, that makes them so much more power. Not just powerful, but just like people don't feel like they're just losing out after 3 turns.
Yeah, it makes it more worth it to play the card overall. I think my personal favorite, I actually really enjoy the channel lands. Like that entire design space is really interesting, and obviously, like you get only one really broken one out of them all, which is Beseiju, but honestly, the rest of them really relatively around a decent power level. They don't really increase anything. They're basically like a free spell in your hand if you really want them to be. I like those.
Yeah, I'm kind of stuck between either like between 2 sagas, the Hidetsugu who consumes all, and the Kiki-Shiki one, Behold the Mirror Breaker. I like both of those because they're very useful, has some very good effects on the front side. Then they flip over, they give you a powerful creature on the back, but not like, oh, this is just they put Kiki-Chiki in standard and made him go infinite in standard. This was like I feel like there was genuine care taken into this set to make it. Like throughout all the commons seem to make sense within the set. Like all the March cycle, I think is in a very fun way to do like an X spell that's not too powerful but pretty powerful if you want it to be. There's a lot of great things about this set.
I'd actually have to say that my second favorite card, now that you mentioned the X spells, was definitely Hinata the Dankron.
Hey.
I want to build a deck around that card so badly.
It is a very good card. Ishin's also like a lot of fun. Like there's a lot of great commanders, but also these are very playable in like non-eternal formats too. Like in standard, Ishin is still being played. Same thing with Hinata in different types of builds. And like also just like a fun card is like Colossal Turtle.
Oh yeah.
Like they brought back a lot of these like things a lot of these mechanics that they had back then and just made them like spend them just enough for like kind of like the more modern Magic design to make you feel like, oh, this was like these are good cards and it's worth using them and having each of them.
If I had to complain about one thing from this set, just one thing, I think the vehicle space they tried to tap into was a bit weak. I don't think like there aren't really any standout vehicles from the set outside of maybe Search Hacker Mech, but I think like that's honestly pretty minor in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I mean the vehicle commander. Which one was it? It was
the commander only one.
Yeah, it was the commander only one. It was the face commander of it. That vehicle I think is like the only like really playable one out of that all, and in like the commander space at least.
Mm-hmm. Which is a shame because I love vehicles in commander because I love big battle cruiser decks like that. But yeah, this deck didn't really support it, but that's fine. It did a whole lot of other things that were right, so I'm not really upset about it.
No, and I agree. I also like Mirror Box too. Like I love that they brought back the legend rule doesn't apply type of thing, but actually made it like a card that's not like undercosted or overcosted. So there's actually a cost to playing it.
Yeah, it's an artifact. It can't be your commander.
Yeah.
Pair it up with another creature that makes it way more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think we all gave our feelings about Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Let's move to one of the worst of 2022. And Claw, I'm gonna skip over that first one because I feel like that's a finisher.
Yeah, you're right.
We're gonna talk about Jumpstart Brothers War, and by proxy, Jumpstart Dominaria United.
Yeah.
So how do you guys feel about this?
Conceptually, I think it's a mistake. I don't think the idea of packaging standard cards into a jumpstart with only like 5 new designs is really a good thing to do, because the decks are like the draft themes are too narrow and too focused to really make that work compared to like the normally like 30 to 40 theme decks that are normally present in a jumpstart set. So I think the idea alone is a complete dud, but the way they did it was somehow worse than the idea itself.
Yeah,
I think
there's not a variation in it either. Like especially
Right.
for the Brothers War one, there's only 2 decks per color.
Yeah, 10 decks is just not enough for what they want to do with it.
And like at this point, it's just a reskin themed booster. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's what I was about to compare it to. It's if you actually compare like the cards in a theme booster versus the cards in a jumpstart booster, they're almost identical, except jumpstart has more lands in it, therefore less potential hits.
I mean, like theme boosters at least like I don't know, they're narrowly focused, but you generally know what you're getting with them, right? There's no element of like surprise or very limited randomization there, and nothing of real value. Whereas with the jumpstart sets, there's potential for real value, but it isn't really there or properly curated. So I don't know. I don't think it works financially or mechanically. It's just, to me, it's just a complete whiff and just a bad idea in general.
Yeah, they killed theme boosters and then they replaced them with what could have been a good idea, where they basically had like diet draft sets within the set, which would have been actually pretty cool. And then it just became, oh, you have your rare is basically guaranteed, and sometimes you get a second rare, whatever color you got.
I mean, I just think the card pool is too limited to do something like Jumpstart.
Yeah,
I really do. Like that's the problem.
It's basically just re-releasing part of the set. That's all it is. It's I can equate it to like what they did with Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow, where they just put them in that double feature set. Like I was that in 2020?
Yeah, that was
20. No, that was
right at the beginning of the year.
yeah.
So I on that same note, I guess we could like talk about that real quick because I don't think we included that on our list. But like, it's just disjointed. It's not carefully thought about. Like, there's just no thought about it. They literally were just like, all right, we're gonna take these cards, shove them into packs, and sell them.
They're just worse cards too because they're black and white. That's it. There's no other like special artistic choices that were made with them, and the list wasn't curated, so you can't draft them well. Like
Yeah, like there were people that were pulling 2 cards of the same exact card in the same pack.
like I don't understand, like that whole one I think baffles me more than the Jumpstart standard sets, but I thought those were a better idea than double feature was. So
Yeah, the original intention was for it to be curated, but then somewhere down the line they lost they lost their way, and then they didn't end up actually.
They did it more for the sake of money than they did for the sake of having a good environment.
like many things WotC does.
Well, that's
Yeah.
why Hasbro and WotC are failing around Magic.
Yeah.
Okay, so our feelings are about the Jumpstart is pretty clear. Let's move on to what do we want to do next. Let's do you want to move to the surprise category, or do we want to go back?
Let's
to good things?
save the surprise category for last, because that's I think that's the most egregious, and I think we can talk about those for a while. So I think let's go on to the next best, which would be the most recent set release, which was Brothers War. I believe that Brothers War was actually very good. The fact that it's not introducing the super powerful cards into the set and like into a standard block that's already got like a bunch of junk in it, and then it doesn't try to force a bunch of commander cards into itself. The only thing that I can really complain about as like a kind of like wash against the set is the fact that in the set boosters you can pull the Transformers cards. That's really it.
That's more of a business thing than it is a design thing, really.
Yeah. The rest of the
That was-
set, very thematically beautiful. All of the flavor is there. Like being able to see the lives of Urza and Mishra growing up. just makes it so much better.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that like when I was coming in the set, when I heard that they were doing this at the beginning of the year, I was so nervous that like we were basically going to do Mirrodin Block 2.0.
That's where I was at as well. I was thinking to myself, oh god, there's going to be more skull clamps and all this other nonsense that's going to take over the set and just destroy everything. But I was very happy with how it was implemented.
It had some needed reprints. Like I'll like say this, like Blast Zone, what is a good thing to bring back into standard, and a good generic reprint. And nothing really feels like everything's kind of in its place, and it encapsulates the entire like antiquities and that the early stages of Magic in a more modern way, which we can understand a little bit clearer.
Yeah,
just like, and also like kind of the modern takes on these old cards. Sort of like how they're like, this is how these cards really should have been when we designed them.
yeah, that's a good way of putting it, Sherry. Is like it's basically an old Magic set with modern design sensibilities. Like I love the flavor of the set. You know, the Brothers War has always been one of my favorite points in the lore in general. But also the things they do with the design space in this set are legitimately things I never would have thought to do. I'm singling out Meld specifically for this because Meld for me was the highlight of the set, hands down. The Meld cards are
100%.
awesome.
Yeah.
Like all of them are playable. They're strong. They don't overwhelm things. They're not like as flat as they are in Eldritch Moon. They all have really awesome, narrow but powerful effects. And it's just such a cool design space. And I hope they tap into it more because it was something that I felt was really wasted in Eldritch Moon. So I'm glad to see they got as far as they did.
The conditions to meld those cards too, it's not like super impossible to reach. Like they're actually very capable, and as we've seen in like some other Magic content creators' content, it's very capable for them to do it multiple times in one game if one of those meld cards is your commander.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that like Meld was the perfect flavor win, and I've been harping on this like a lot with flavor, but it like truly shows the growth of these planes of Mishra and Urza and Titania to an extent. Like the growth at the end of the war is them literally being too big for their card and combining into a greater card, which is perfectly encompassed by Meld. Like the Mishra one is super powerful. So is the Urza Planeswalker, literally the biggest Planeswalker ever printed. It's just like it's so Urza. Like that.
The Garrick promo from 2012 would like to have a word with you.
You're not
true,
gonna
that's
get yourself
true.
claw.
I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, those meld cards, man, they're so good. And honestly, like some of the artifacts that were introduced into the set, like we're gonna have like a set review of this set at some point. So like we're not gonna go in super detail about the full set, obviously, but just being able to like have those artifacts be in there, but not have them break the formats that they're introduced into. It just feels really. It feels like it's a better step towards the right direction, towards making a good set. I worry that the next set, when they release for Phyrexia All is One, I worry that set's going to be super fucking broke, but we'll see about that, I guess.
I mean, I'm actually cautiously optimistic. As you've seen this year, when the sets from this year, and this is kind of like an all-encompassing best, every set is very well done. Like the main sets. And they're not overtly powerful. They give us pretty good reprints and give us some new ideas like Prototype and like some other really great ideas. They're not broken, but they are good. And they create they foster a good design space around them for designing decks in whatever format you might play.
On that note, let's move on to the next burst. I think this one is one that we could talk about for quite a while. How many secret layers did they have this year?
I think it's at least 52.
Yeah, that's it. Like secret layers in general, I believe have been they're becoming more of a focus for Wizards of the Coast, unfortunately, and obviously they're selling. Otherwise, they wouldn't keep making them. And I hate that they're selling too, though, because a lot of these secret layers this year, especially, have been just basic lands. You get 5 basic lands for $30, and there's been so many at this point that you can't sit there and say, "Oh yeah, this is worth it to buy. I should definitely buy this because I need these basic lands." No, it's just like the ones that really like seem egregious to me are the ones that were based around the star signs. Like the second I saw those, I was like, I'm done. I hate this so much.
I think it's more insulting because the idea is like I would be fine with them selling basic land secret layers with cool artwork for that price if they included multiples in the set. I think they needed at least like 10 per basic to justify it.
Yeah,
The idea of it being one set of each is for $30 is absolutely fucking offensive.
Yeah, and I agree with that. That's like, is there some cool lands? Like, I'd love to have like 10 to 15 that I can put like 5 and 3 in my decks that would fit the theme. Like, wouldn't want to have what's it like synthwave a magic card in like a vehicles deck? It just feels good. It feels like but you can't when you have to spend $150 to get enough basics in there. You can't do it.
Don't even say you can go to the secondhand market for this because I guarantee you it's going to be almost as bad there. So
slightly cheaper.
Yeah. So like I think the idea of it is just offensive in its current execution. It's probably like the most overtly offensive thing to me that Wizards has done this year, which is still saying a lot because they've done a lot of very offensive things, as we'll get to, I'm sure.
Yeah, and like it's also just a inconsistency too, because like some of the secret layers are actually really good. Like that, honestly, the Post Malone secret layer, I actually didn't mind that one. That one wasn't that bad. I didn't consider buying it because it's not for me, but like the cards they put in it, pretty good, and they're actually worth the price that they're selling it for. Like they say they don't acknowledge the secondary market, and then they proceed to charge $200 for the fetch lands. And that was last year, I get that, but like that's still like the overall concept.
Yeah, it's sort of like the one secret layer I actually did buy during the release was the Phyrexian one, just because I loved that they were all Phyrexian. But like if they were all like that, like just they're good value because at the time all of those really effectively needed a reprint, and you weren't overpaying for it. Like that's fine. Like, but but most of the time they're not even like they're not good reprints. It's like the art's good in them, but there's only like 4 cards in some of the secret layers versus like sometimes there's like 10 of them or like 3 of them. It doesn't like there's no consistency in when they drop these.
Mm-hmm. I think the frequency of the drops is also a big part of the problem as well. People just burnt out. People are just straight up burnt out with how often they drop these particular secret layers. Like I don't know the actual number of secret layers dropped. I doubt it's 52, but it feels like it's 52 because of just how many there have been this year.
Yeah, it feels like we're in a constant hype train. Like there's just consistently another product that's being released, and we're never able to like settle down and focus on the product that was just released.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was sort of like how we very recently Jumpstart 2022 was released, and Eli just simply didn't know.
I didn't even know it was releasing. I thought it was releasing later in December. Like,
yeah, I had no clue it came out either until it did, and I heard about it, and I'm like, wait, what?
On the old LGS's Facebook page, and I was like, oh, hey, they're selling Jumpstart 2022. What the fuck? When did that drop? And then like I saw that the whole set has been spoiled, and like they talked about it all and everything. And I was like, oh, okay, well, Brothers War just released. like
they're giving it no room to breathe.
Yeah, it's just product fatigue. Like there's so much, and it's hurting the LGSs too. Like they can't sell all of the product that they get, and they're forced to either sell it on discount or just straight up like have to take the hit and not buy it. and then when players want it, they're just gonna go to Amazon or something.
Well, like that's the problem because their margins are already really really small on MTG because MTG has like the most like it's weird. Players will speak the most through their wallets, and unfortunately, most of the time, because of the way Wizards has set this up, it only affects the local game stores because local game stores are the one who actually bought it from their distributors or from Wizards, and they have already sold it, so they don't care if the set's a dud because they've already sold it. And it's very hard for some of these businesses to just keep staying open and keep selling because they have no incentive to.
Yeah. And that's why you see so many of them selling, like converting it into like half game store, half cafe, or half like, selling a lot of drinks and other stuff beyond just normal product, because they have no choice. They kind of have to if they want to stay open.
I know a lot of them have done like mainly Warhammer, have switched over to Warhammer,
right,
as a big money maker because those we will sell, and they're expensive, and you can mark them up, and people will still pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that got a little off topic, but
that's fine.
Okay, so let's go back and talk about a good thing. New Capenna finished the Triumph cycle.
Yeah,
that's all it is. That's what Capenna was a great set. I love the style. I love the lands from it. But like the flavor, the best thing was they finished the Triumph cycle.
True.
I mean, go ahead, Eli.
Yeah, there's not much to say on Capenna because it feels like it happened last year, even though it happened this year. Like there wasn't anything super notable that came from that set. I don't think. I think that the most notable card that came from it was Luxier's Gift or whatever, and that's really about it. Because like that and Halo Fountain, but Halo Fountain's a niche win con that only like a few of us in this decade are ever going to try to use.
Well, now you're just daring me.
Well, I feel like I'm called out here.
Yes, you are. You are called out. I think you're going to get it one of these days, but I have to hope that you don't because it's going to be a painful loss when it does happen.
So you're saying that we should all build Halo Fountain win con decks?
No.
Because I'm down. I'll do it.
It has to be all mono white.
Yep.
Halo Fountain to make it fair.
To make it more fair, we can make them all spirit decks and just have us all play Celestial Kieran.
Hey, I'm doing my tap tribal deck.
Ah, okay. That's fair.
Okay. So, short, good, back to the bad. We're going to save the one you're thinking of, Clough, for last.
God damn. Okay.
So the biggest problem that I've seen that Wizards has just blatantly ignored and let just fester in the corner is Magic Arena.
Oh, I thought we were saving that one for last.
Go ahead. Speak on Magic Arena.
All right, kiddies. So, man, when I heard about Magic Arena at first, I got so hyped. I was so excited for it. I thought it was going to revitalize the game in a new way, and in some ways it did. But I think right now, Wizards has completely fumbled and dropped the ball on what they want to do with it. They've explicitly stated, we're not going to add multiplayer to Magic Arena, and that's fine. I get that. The issue comes in when the game is so poorly monetized and so greedy and hungry for your wallet that you got to feed the beast if you want to keep playing it. And it's gotten to that point. And it's the kind of the point I was afraid of. I wouldn't even mind it as much if they did what the Pokemon TCG did and just had like codes that could be redeemed in each pack of Magic cards. And don't tell me they haven't thought about it. I'm certain they have. But they're just like, no, we don't want to do it because it impacts our bottom line. So once again, the theme of this year is Hasbro or WOTC's greed has severely damaged what could have been a very good thing.
Yeah.
And Magic Arena, to me, falls very deeply into that category. And at this point, the fact that it hasn't been done yet tells me that it will not be done unless they are really that desperate to drive up paper Magic sales. But I don't think they care at this point because they have secret layers, which can always be a direct line. They, they kind of shrug with local game stores, even though local game stores are how people have traditionally gotten into Magic for over 20 years. And they're just like, whatever. We make money because the whales buy it.
Yeah, it's like I've only used Magic Arena like a little bit when it first started, and like when I was bored during the middle of COVID, and it's so unoptimized, and it feels just like super clunky to play on, especially when you're like trying to resolve a lot of triggers at the same time. To have to manually sit there and click yes, 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 no, yes, yes, yes on all of those triggers, and not have just a quick key you can press, or like for you to have to try to build a deck in that entire, like the UI that they have for that, it was a pain in the ass. And to even get the cards that you want, you can't buy the individual cards you want. You have to buy the packs and hope you get the cards you want, unless you use wild cards on them. But I don't even know what the fuck a wild card does.
So wild card basically is a copy, essentially. If you pull the first copy of the card, you can burn wild cards to get more copies. And I don't really have a problem with that. I much more have a problem with the fact that there have been no major improvements to the interface, to the performance, and to the actual experience of Magic Arena. I think that's what upsets me the most, is that they're making all that money, but nothing is being displayed back to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the worst part about it is like the inconveniences like that have already been solved through MTGO.
Well, MTGO has its own share of problems.
Well, it has its own share of problems, but it's may have an archaic interface, but in terms of actually playing the game the way it's intended to, it's about as close as you can get. And they haven't taken any of those lessons, like of what's good and bad about MTGO, and brought that to Arena. It's like there's actually like little things within like Magic Arena where it's like, yeah, you're not technically playing the game quite correctly because we can't quite code it that way to make it work on the user interface. And I'm like, that shouldn't be the thing. That shouldn't be okay.
Yeah,
it's been a problem for so long, and they just haven't had any urgency to fix it. Like, it's not a priority for them, obviously. It's still making them money, and they're just going to keep it going until it stops making them money.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most egregious examples of corporate greed outright strangling what could be a really awesome thing. And yeah, Magic Arena to me is like probably, in my opinion, still the worst thing that happened this year for Magic. And I don't know if you guys feel the same way. You probably don't, because there's one other thing that's really bad. But
I think it's up there, definitely. And I think the reason why it's still up there is because it's been a problem of being one of the worst things that happens to Magic for the last 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've made no improvement since it's come out. It's basically the same format since it's come out.
Oh, it's not true. They give you Brawl.
Well, you can only play Brawl like once a week.
Yeah, for a week. Hey, take it if you can get it.
Well, sorry, they also give you Alchemy too, which is entirely different. Like,
yeah.
Oh God.
And that's another thing as well. For Magic Arena exclusive cards.
Yeah.
I am so opposed to that. And mechanics. Yeah. You actually have no idea how irritating that is for me personally, especially when some of these mechanics are very replicatable on tabletop.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a couple out there like that you couldn't replicate on tabletop, but I can't think off the top of my head of any of them right now. Like, I know there's a couple really wacky ones that are like, you pull a random card from your deck that's a land, and like that would take forever to resolve in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Because you'd have to go through your deck, separate all your lands, shuffle them up, and then pull one randomly.
Yeah, fair enough. But like, there's also a fair few that would fit just fine in a commander token deck.
Oh, absolutely.
That could work. And I'm like, Why isn't this a real card? Why didn't we print this?
Who knows?
So-
Maybe they're using it as like a test space, and then they're gonna print it into a real card eventually.
Well,
I
that's
doubt it though.
Yeah, I don't think that's likely.
So
Okay.
on to our final best. We will be talking about a set we mentioned it earlier. It's Jumpstart 2022. I haven't had any personal experience with it where I've like actually held it in my hands or done anything with it. But based on the card sets and the way that the decks or the half decks are laid out and being able to see those, it looks like it's actually going to be like a fairly balanced Jumpstart. It's going to not be as powerful. It's not going to introduce things like Allosaurus Shepherd or some other ones from
The Minotaur one, the Minotaur leader for that one, I don't remember him, but he was really good.
Yeah, stuff like that. Like, it's not going to be super powerful cards that are going to be everyone's going to be pulling Jumpstart packs for. It's just going to be like some fun cards or needed reprints like Kiki Jiki or like some of the like the Snowland deck that I really honestly I just like snow stuff.
Yeah, it's like it gave you a snow commander that's not in Sultai.
Yeah.
Because everything's in Sultai nowadays. But,
Yep.
But I think the biggest thing was that like they took the good parts of Jumpstart, and even though there was so much taintedness from Brothers War and Dominator United, it still ended up being the same thing when they released the full set. Like it's basically they cut off the top and the bottom of it, and it seems like there's no real bad half deck that you can pull. It's just making it work with your other half deck. That's the only, like, and that's a fun like gameplay idea. Just like, oh, let's see how these two work together. And it seems like there was genuine care taken into laying out these decks, like these half decks.
There's a few that I would like to call out as particular standouts for me. The first one being the Karn half deck.
Urza half deck.
Or the Urza half deck. Yeah.
That's the one you want.
That's absolutely the one you want. But I also think it's a well-designed, like, deck anyways, besides, because it's got, like, you know, some cool stuff going on with its land situation. Obviously, you've got the two giant bombs in there of Karn Liberate and Walking Ballista. But you also have some really cool stuff as well. Like, and in general, like, I like seeing more colorless support. So I think this deck in general is just an overall like win for me personally. Like more stuff like more mannequins and thaumaturgist familiars in the world. That doesn't hurt. And of course the popper favorite Alchemist Vial as well, the best card ever printed.
Oh yeah, obviously.
I will not hear otherwise.
Oh, don't forget the always no one expects it Meteor Golem.
Oh yeah, Meteor Golem. What a powerful card.
All 7 mana of it, but it does its job.
It does what it wants. There was another. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Yep. I also just like that they also like the insect commander that they printed into this is not like it's not like what they did with was it Chatterfang, which is absurdly powerful. This is like, oh, this is pretty interesting. You can cast insect spells from your graveyard, and then you do a little self mill, and it all works together. And it's just like it doesn't feel like it's not like super efficient. It's 3 green for a 5/5 with all these abilities, which I'm like, this is a fair card. It's not like it has all these abilities for like 3 mana, which is the biggest problem that Wizards has done now is that everything's like 3 or 4 mana, which like does a number on all the formats that these enter.
Yeah.
Now, my favorite card out of the set, obviously, is one that still resonates with me for another reason. It's Mizzix Replica Rider. It's another Mizzix because Mizzix is the first deck I ever had from David here, so it's really good. And I personally really like this because it's just it's a 4/5 for 5, and when it has flying, and the being able to like pay extra mana to copy spells that you cast from other than your hand. I love that. That's really good because it makes like the impulse draws so much better.
Mm-hmm. I also like to give a shout out to Rats. The Rats deck, particularly Ash Code of the Shadow Swarm. I think that card's really cool. Yeah, it's really sick. It just does a lot, and it's again, I like seeing more weird tribal support from Wizards, and Ash Code is really strong. So I think that seeing this card in play is really fun, and of course, it has the best card in Magic. Okay, the second best card in Magic, Chittering Rats.
Obviously, yeah.
So powerful.
Can't beat it.
Can't beat it.
Ashcote's pretty good. I hadn't seen that one yet.
Yeah, no. Ashcote's really sick. I might build a deck of it, maybe.
Not surprised, honestly.
Yeah.
Also, a great reprint with Orpheomancer.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, that's been needing a reprint for a long time. Like, this just speaks about the reprints in this set. They're not all like $100 reprints, but these are all like $10 reprints. Frankly, that's what we need as a format, is more $10 reprints.
But of course, they have another Ristic Study reprint, so
which is good.
Yeah,
good.
it's become the next chase card of this, and that's really actually not that bad because it'd be like a $20 card.
Yeah.
So like it makes it more affordable for one, and for two, it's not as bad as Allosaurus Shepherd, where people were literally cracking full boxes of Jumpstart just to get one.
Yeah, and then not getting it because they were either boxes that had it or boxes that had 3 of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they've done a really good job. Like, which given what they had set us up for this year with this was, I was expecting a disaster.
Yeah.
So.
Same.
Yeah. It's not as blatantly powerful, but I like a lot of it, and I think it's overall a net positive for Magic.
I think it's time to talk on the last worst.
Yep.
So it's kind of a big letdown, in my opinion, for this to be called a worst, because when you think of the unsets, you don't think of it as usually bad. You hear Unfinity, and I'm just like, well, maybe it could have been good, but the fact that they added stickers, tickets, attractions, all in the same set, and their eternal legal format cards, I can't believe they did that. Like it's not so egregious that eternal legal cards are super bad, but adding all of those mechanics that require external things like a whole sticker deck, a whole attraction deck,
yeah,
and you need to worry about tracking how many tickets you have. There's just so much to worry about from those cards being added into eternal formats. They're not good cards, mind you, so there's not going to be many that show up in eternal decks, but there's enough that it could cause some concern.
It is a real dangerous precedent to set, I would say, because now you open up, if you do another joke set like this, you open it up to people actively buying it for a chase card. And that's something I absolutely abhor, because these sets are supposed to be fun, lighthearted draft sets that have really wacky, unusual effects that you'd never see in a normal game of Magic. And, they're a ton of fun to draft, and they're great. And of course, people buy them for the lands, but that's you can just buy the lands anyways.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing was that you look at all the previous draft environments from these unsets, and they look like they're super duper fun. Like there's Frankie Peanuts is a classic. All the really when they did contraptions and unstable, but all of these other ones, because most of these mechanics are now not standard legal, but eternal format legal, is kind of just this isn't fun because I actually have to know what these do. And they've also really inconsistent about what what gets the quote unquote acorn and what gets actually put into eternal formats.
Yep.
Where there was actually some fun design space that they could have put into the eternal formats and they end up getting an acorn, which is an entirely different thing. I hate the acorns. I want silver borders. I love silver border. They look so good.
There's also the like super bad thing where there's a lot of cards that don't explain what you're doing with them. The attractions themselves do not explain most of the time what you're doing with them. You have to learn that from either another card or from if somehow there's the explanation text on the card that opened the attraction. The sticker cards don't have any explanation as to how you get them or how you're supposed to use them. They don't explain that you have to buy the sticker cards with the tickets, and that they don't explain what tickets are for half the time either, or how you get them. You know, there's very few cards that actually produce tickets. A lot of cards will expend tickets, but it's not careful. Like they were just
Very
too willy-nilly with what they're throwing into the legal formats now. And another thing is it's like the reason why people bought this set too wasn't because it was a fun draft environment or because they were like, you know, there was a really good chase card. It's because of the Shocklands.
That also didn't show up as consistently as Wizards mentioned.
Yeah, there was such a low pull rate on them. People were buying the boxes like crazy, trying to get something. And with the pull rates being as low as they are, the only reason why it's sold is because of that.
Yeah.
The thing that's probably also the most kind of insulting is making a Jace in this set. And like I like the idea of Comet, but the way it's like all of this is done was just so callously. And also having collector boosters in this set, which is just absurd when I first heard about that. That was like, I feel like that was like borderline insulting. Because like, unless these collector boosters are full of like the lands and Shocklands, you're not getting your money back.
Yeah.
Nope.
I when I heard about collector boosters for Unfinity, I was outright incredulous. Like that to me is like a demonstration of the ultimate callousness of this company and how the game is, in my opinion, devolved severely. And like it's just annoying too, because like there's so many of these cards that I think are decent, fun cards for the common level. But I think the design space overall is just weaker than any of the three unsets beforehand, even Unstable, which it was mostly designed for draft and actually being a draft format, whereas the other two sets beforehand were mostly focused on being complete jokers, heal. This one I don't think produced a particularly fun draft environment either. So I think in almost every account, it's failed outside of a few interesting cards.
Unfortunately, those interesting cards aren't even legal.
I don't care if they're legal. I just make it all or nothing, or explain your reasoning better, or like it's just don't make them legal. Just don't make them legal.
Yeah.
Just don't make them legal. Like simple as that. Like honestly, for Commander, just rule 0 all the cards that you want in. Like if you're gonna put a silver bordered card, like Sword of Dungeons and Dragons or Krog's Other Thumb.
Or Cheaty Face.
That's what made me the most angry about this set. They did not reprint into legalness Krog's Other Thumb.
It can actually legally work now because dice rolling is a thing in Magic now.
Thanks to the D&D sets.
Thanks to the D&D sets, like you could just print that card or print a card that's an equivalent of it. But no, they've only done creatures that do that. They don't have an artifact that can let you do it.
Yeah, also them just like all the fun design space was like all the new commanders that they printed in that are actually truly legal in the format are all boring. Whereas all the ones that aren't quote unquote legal in the format are actually fun. Like Claire de Lune is one of them. And what's another one that's commander? There's a couple other ones. But like
Grand Marshal Macy.
Grand Marshal Macy is a lot of fun. There was a lot of other just really good ones like the Vorthos one, I think that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like that could have worked.
Yep.
And it's like there's so many like the cards that are like that had what the set should have been, but they didn't. There were only a couple of those, and they were all, and the rest of them really just kind of stunk. Like they didn't provide an explanation of the difference between visiting an attraction and opening an attraction, which I didn't find out until fairly recently. And it's just like this was a huge, unquestionable disappointment.
This was easily the biggest disappointment of the year for me. It's probably the worst designed product that came from WOTC, I would say.
I agree with that.
It's either that or Jumpstart standards, but I think this is more egregious because there was more hype behind it.
Yeah, because they showed they showed the best cards first, then they spoiled the rest of it, and it was like
It just kept going downhill. It was like, this is just not good.
like this all is bad.
Yeah. What a shame.
Yeah. It's
Now
time
we get to the unfun category.
Oh, what are you talking about? I have a great time complaining about this part.
This is
So-
the super secret third category that we've been hinting at throughout the episode.
Can I say what it's called?
By all
Yes,
means.
please.
It's a shameless cash grab category, and Wizards has been really good in this category this year, or really bad.
It's a matter of perspective.
I say we start from the bottom of the list we have and work our way up.
I agree with that.
Because I believe that the top one that we have is probably the worst one.
Yeah, easily.
100%.
So, as this is like to set the precedent here. Shameless cash grab number one here. Universes Beyond, especially the Fortnite cards. So, the introduction of Universes Beyond allows for Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro to collaborate with different IPs, and them doing that makes it to where I can legally declare that a Stardaze is going to be the creature type that I choose for Morphon, the Boundless, when I cast him. Or I could make a Transformer the legal type for when I cast Morphon, the Boundless. Any declarable types shouldn't have things like Transformers, a Stardaze, the fucking the
Tyranids.
the Tyranids. Like it's just they're trying to expand outward to draw people that aren't in the Magic the Gathering space already, and it's just them wanting more money from those people, because the people that are truly dedicated to Magic are like, oh, this is terrible. Because we saw it in like 2020 when they did the Walking Dead Secret Lair. That was the start of it. And we're like, okay, this is bad. We hate this, but there's a lot of people that bought this. So, like, they're going to do it again. It didn't happen for a while, but then they did the Stranger Things Secret Lair. But at the announcement of that, they announced that they would include the cards themselves with Magic equivalents inside the set, New Capenna. And we're like, oh, okay, well, that's not too bad then, because, that lessens the blow. It's like, okay, well, you have your, IP version, and then you have the regular Magic version. Because they did the same thing with Ikoria, with Godzilla, and, like, King Kong, Mothra, and all that stuff. And that's okay. Like, that's fine. Like, that's just a matter of, like, flavor or whatever, anything like that. But then they did the Warhammer 40k Commander decks. There's no Magic equivalent for those decks. Those cards will never be reprinted. And that's what makes it so bad for me.
My big thing is that it's the company not understanding what the people who actually make these actually do to foster the growth of the game was best when they allowed the people who understand Magic, which is their player base, to get other people to come in. but Magic doesn't necessarily sell. Didn't necessarily sell well in the Street Fighter and like Arcane, Stranger Things, and Walking Dead. It didn't sell well with people outside the game. It only sold well with people inside the game. It is not expanding the brand. It is just actually dividing the brand into what people believe can be in Magic and what people believe can't be in Magic. And it's arguably just like it's causing like legitimate schisms between fan bases or between the fan base and not actually growing the game like they intended. It's like if, for example, I wasn't in Magic for a long time. If someone told me that they had a Nier Automata secret lair, like when I was first playing that, I wouldn't have gone out and purchased a pack or purchased a secret lair because I wouldn't have wanted to partake in that because then that's the way most people are with their IPs.
It's also a matter of the rules implications for these cards are legitimately quite horrifying as well. Because the Walking Dead cards were especially egregious to a lot of people because they were eternal legal.
Yeah.
Like, and none of them were good. Again, like it's the same
Rick
deal.
Is still doing a number in Legacy.
Well, sure. Like, yeah, Rick is good in Legacy, but like in general, the cards themselves are not designed specifically for, that kind of competitive play. But the idea that it's there at all is troubling, and it should trouble people. And then the Warhammer 40k commander decks were especially egregious because they had specific subtypes that are exclusive to it, like we mentioned before. Like, so what does that mean for the rules of the game themselves? Does it change anything? Can it change anything? Are the comprehensive rules going to be updated to accommodate this? Like, the actual like play implications to me are the most defensive part of the whole thing, more than just capitalizing on it. And it's only going to get worse as well. That's the thing that bothers me as much, is that this is going, because there's an entire Lord of the Rings modern set or modern legal set that's coming out next year. And that's terrifying.
Then there's the Doctor Who Commander decks.
The Doctor Who Commander decks, which is literally the least relevant IP, maybe to Magic ever. That's not quite true, but that doesn't matter. It exists and we don't like it.
Yeah, and it's just going to keep getting worse.
And Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Oh, that one really rankled me.
Yeah.
Hearing about the Assassin's Creed ones was just why.
I play Ezio Auditore da Firenze.
Murder.
5 mana.
Murder.
Well,
the
thing that's funny is that if they worked within what is actually like if these universes beyond would only really be to like the Dungeons and Dragons, which actually aren't even technically universes beyond, because they're kind of one and the same in different ways. Like going to Dungeons and Dragons was fine, and it honestly worked. It worked because like the things that they do are both people who play Magic generally will also play D&D at least once in their life, and that wasn't harmful. It's that all the rest of this is extremely harmful to the game, and it worries me that we're going to just get these and they're just going to keep selling and just be taxing on the people's wallets even more.
Yeah, I don't know. If you really, really had to get people from the outside involved in the game, do as they do with the secret lairs. Have them do artwork,
Yep.
Like have them do more stuff like the War of the Spark Japanese arts, or have them, those were awesome. Or have them do what I forget the name of the artist from Metal Gear Solid was. I'm sure it's going to be on the screen right now. I'm creating more work for you, Sherry. I'm not sorry about it.
Oh, you're talking about those those fancy style secret layers.
Yeah,
like the Japanese art.
Yeah,
that was really good.
Yeah, do more things like that. Like I don't want to see the 11th Doctor as a card. I don't want to see Bilbo Baggins as a card.
I don't want a Hobbit as a creature type.
No, I don't either.
I cast Gandalf the White.
Terminate.
Yeah, it's just
Gandalf the White. Why isn't he in white? Why is he a blue red card?
Flavor fail, man.
Fail.
Oh god.
Up
Okay.
next, we've got Double Masters 2, The Quest for More Money. Also known as what Commander Legends 2 should have been. Honestly, I'll let you start, Jerry.
I think the thing that's most frustrating is they released literally within weeks of each other. Like I think it was a week of Commander Legends at Battle for Baldur's Gate, which on its own, if it didn't have the Commander Legends name, would have done significantly better. And it was like, oh, there wasn't as many reprints as Commander Legends, and okay, it's whatever. And then you start seeing the spoilers for Double Masters 2. Most of Double Masters 2 are reprints for Commander. Cards that don't see play other than in.
And these are good reprints too. Like we're talking things like Imperial Steel, Liliana of the Last Hope, Shadowborn Apostle, Mana Vault, Allosaurus Shepherd got a reprint there as well, which is
Smothering Tide.
Smothering Tithe, Oracle Moldiah, Animar Soul of Elements, Anima 2. Like we're talking heavy hitters here. These are
You can't forget about Dockside Extortionist.
oh, you absolutely can't forget about Dockside or Teferi's Protection.
Yeah, everyone was clamoring for Dockside Extortionist to be reprinted in the Dungeons and Dragons set, and it wasn't. And then they saw it was in the Double Masters 2, and everyone got furious about it, especially because it was reprinted at the Mythic level.
Yeah, which is just insulting. Like I want to make clear here. I actually think this set's kind of good. But the fact that they timed it so badly just to have their Commander Legends set fail right then is flat out insulting and mind-boggling. Like, or they didn't space it out properly to where they could actually have these reprints, or just deeming it to D&D in general was probably just a bad idea that couldn't let them do it.
Yeah, and not to mention, like, it's all the reprints that we had aren't meaningful because there's not enough product out there for it to actually lower the price of the cards for long enough. Like, most of the cards by now have risen back to the price that they were, if not higher.
Yeah, so if you're hoping to get cheap Ren 6, don't do that.
Yeah. Not to mention the collector boosters.
That was insulting.
Yeah.
That is insulting. For $250.
Yeah, how would you like to buy 4 packs of Double Masters and not be guaranteed to hit anything that could get you above $250?
Yeah, pardon my French, but fuck off, WOTC.
Yeah. It's so... They just wanted money from this one. They saw how well the last one sold, and they're like, alright, we're going to do it again, but we're going to charge way more for it.
We charge way more, and we're gonna kill our Commander Legends set as a result.
What was it,
Yeah.
$15 a pack? Or something like that?
That was the first one. I think this is close to 20.
Yes.
Per draft booster.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what's weird is that like people realize that the draft boosters are actually better than the collector boosters, besides not having a chance at a textured foil, which turned out to be a flop compared to like the neon ink cards.
Yeah, because
It made it impossible to get draft. You couldn't draft, even though the draft environment was actually fairly interesting. I couldn't afford to draft it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like $100 to draft.
Yeah. It's crazy. It was so expensive to draft. I never drafted it. I can't afford that.
no, I can't afford it either. Like, it's ridiculous.
Like, and we make good money too. So like,
Yeah, we're working as like 2 of us are working as engineers, and you're working as cybersecurity
sysadmin.
sysadmin. Like, come on, like you just the fact that we're struggling to afford that stuff because it's just not worth our time or money. Like, it's just so inflated in price, and you know, Wizards is just gonna sit there and be like, oh, this is our best physical year in a long time. Like, we got record-breaking sales. It's because you're charging so much more for your products. On the topic of charging way too much for your products, Magic the Gathering, the 30th anniversary edition. What the fuck?
I actually want to combine the what is it? The Countdown Edition too, probably actually one of the best secret layers ever released that basically sold out in 20 minutes where only whales could get it.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, what is this one? I haven't heard about this.
It was a secret layer that was going to cost about $150, but had 30 cards, each one for each year of Magic. They had some heavy hitters. They had Necropotence, Chrome Mox.
Oh my god!
Oh
Dark
shit!
Typhoon.
Jeez.
And all in these alternate arts, and it was really cool. I was actually considering picking one up because it was like, okay, this is like the one time I'll spend to get a really cool alternate art Chrome Mox. And like, if you guys look it up, it's there. The way it's done is really cool. And Wizards was like, oh yeah, we'll actually have it in time for Christmas, but we'll only have 1,000 of them. But they didn't tell anybody. There's like they said it was like, oh, it's limited edition, and it sold out in 20 minutes.
It's impossible for me to find what these cards are.
I'm looking at it right now. These are. Oh, yeah. This is sick.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that Chrome Mox so good. I like.
Shout outs to the Elspeth Suns champion.
That was another great one. But like, you guys are looking at this. The countdown is amazing. Like, it is hands down probably the best secret layer in terms of value, art, and just overall feel of what's celebrating it. And for $150, I was actually considering it. But
that's a fair price, yeah. Especially since you have something like Lynn Civi in there, which is crazy niche.
That Deathrite Shaman art, oh my god. That is so cool.
But them only having so much of this product, and this actually will go into account of MTG 30 as well. So there are actually some stats for MTG 30. They were only going to be like 14,000 of these units they were going to sell worldwide for MTG 30, and they cut off the sale because no one bought it. Across the world, only 2,200 were bought because they charged $999 for 4 packs of proxies
that may or may not have the proxies you want.
Yeah.
I don't think any more needs to be said about how offensive and insulting that is to the player base. And it's a pitiful representation for the showing of the 30th anniversary.
Mm-hmm. You not only pissed off the average user because they couldn't afford it, you made the whales mad, which is hard to do.
Yep.
Because people doing the math, like, it's like one out of every 1,000 or like 4,000 has a Black Lotus black border, like their old border, and where people didn't even want to touch this because they're like, these are proxies. You're technically violating the reserve list, which honestly, if Wizard gets sued, I'll be happy if they get sued over this, because I'm like, if you want to stick to the reserve list, you basically created proxies, which you said you would never do again, and you did it. And you know me, I'm not a big fan of the reserve list. I wish everything was reprinted. I want things to have value, but like, seriously? Like, why are you spending this now on meaningless cards that you can't technically use in any format?
Yeah,
because people will buy it.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. Nobody bought it.
Yeah.
It's because they can't afford it. It was so expensive. Like, they were not going to make their money back. They can't sell the shit. Like, nobody's going to want to buy that. Like, literally, not promoting anybody to do this at all, but wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you really want a volcanic island, or you really want any of those dual lands, or you really want a Black Lotus that's, like, you know, has really cool art, find a proxy artist. Pay them, like, a really small amount of money, and they'll make it for you. And then there you go. You have the card that you can use to play.
Well, not even a small amount of money, but like certainly much smaller than the several thousands of dollars that those proxies fetch for. Like,
yeah, like it's
pay artists.
It's just not sustainable. Like, pay the artist that you really want, and like, you don't pay Wizards of the Coast any amount of money that's like that obscene. Yeah, for something that you could get for much less online.
What I would suggest doing is, if you are truly a believer that proxy shouldn't be a thing, find the absolute worst card in that you want in that condition, and then go onto the various websites. Alter Sleeves is one of them, and get someone that does basically just the card art with a little bit of updated, and you get to look at the pretty card. You physically own it at its theoretical cheapest, and you get to see a pretty card, and you have it.
By the way, Alter Sleeve, if you want to sponsor us, I'm sure they'll be more than willing.
Not a sponsor, just a really cool thing that we like. Go check them out.
But if you want to, you should.
Well, like it's like things like that. It's like, or go on Etsy and they make proxies for you.
Yeah, if you really want, you can get some really interesting proxies of cards. I'm not going to speak on the interestingness of them, but let's just say they have a lot of personality. I've definitely sent some of those proxies over to a friend of ours who wants to make a whole deck around those proxies because he's a degenerate.
Yeah, it's just like things like that. What we're saying is, we're glad Magic's lasted 30 years, and Magic is going to last well beyond whenever Wizards of the Coast decides to get rid of it. Whenever Daddy
Father Hasbro.
Not Father well, it's Daddy Hasbro, but Father Richard Garfield decides to buy Magic again, which I hope he does.
Please buy Magic again.
Save us.
We miss you, Richard. That's been our best and worst of 2022, as well as the additional cash grabs. I'd like to thank David for joining us today, and just make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell us how you feel about the cards that we've talked about, some of the stuff that we've done today, and let us know your opinions on what you think the best things of 2022 were, what the worst things were. If you agree with our opinions or if you disagree with our opinions, we want to hear it all. So have a good day.
Bye-bye.